What is going on, everybody? It is me again. It is Horror Fan 34, and welcome to another video. And welcome once again to another top 10 video. Just figured I got done doing my top 10 favorite Chuck Norris films, and I figured, why not do another one of another guy who I really do enjoy as an actor. And I figured this would be a pretty good one to do because I feel like this guy is kind of underrated in a way, I would say. And of course that is going to be on Wesley Snipes. Without it, I think he's a very talented guy, very talented actor. It's a shame what happened to him personal wise, and things like that. You can read up about it on the internet about that stuff, about what happened to him personally. But I think he's done a lot of really good stuff over the years, especially in the '90s. That was like his heyday, was the '90s. And I figure, what? Why not do a top 10 on Wesley Snipes? I actually have some films of his right here. So, without further ado, let's get on to my top 10 favorite Wesley Snipes films. So, here we go here. Coming in at number 10 is a film that gets a lot of shit, and I really don't understand why it gets a lot of hate. I personally enjoy this film, and I know my good friend Rob really enjoys this film too. I mean, we both think this film is underrated, but it easily had to be in my top 10 favorites. So number 10, Boiling Point. Without a doubt, one of Wesley Snipes' most underrated films. I know it gets a lot of shit from people, and yes, of course, that is signed by Christine Elise, who plays Viggo Mortensen's girlfriend in the film. She was really, really nice, by the way. One of my favorite guests I ever met at a horror con. I explained that more in my Monster Mania update when I met her and everything. But Boiling Point is definitely an underrated one. I don't understand the hate this film gets. Pretty much Wesley Snipes is a cop who's tracking down these two killers, pretty much. Played by Dennis Hopper and Viggo Mortensen. And, it's a pretty good little thriller. Directed by James B. Harris. This is the same guy before this had directed Cop, which is my favorite James Woods film. And sadly, this is the last film that he's directed. He never directed again, which is sad. But I've always really enjoyed Boiling Point. I never understood the hate that it got. Sure, it's not like wall-to-wall action and things like that, but I think it's a nice little blend of action and thriller, and I think Wesley Snipes does a great job. So does Dennis Hopper. I miss Dennis Hopper. Viggo Mortensen does a good job. And you have a really great supporting cast, like, Dan Hedaya, like I said, Christine Elise. But I really do enjoy Boiling Point. I never understood the hate that this film gets. I never understood it. But that's easily my number 10. My number 9, Passenger 57. Definitely one of my personal favorites when it comes to Wesley Snipes. Pretty much in a way, sort of like the precursor in a way to Air Force One, where it takes place on this airplane, and these guys take over this airplane, and Wesley Snipes is a cop. Well, in that one, like, Harrison Ford was the president and everything, and Wesley Snipes is not the president, of course, in this. He's a cop. But it's sort of like, in a way, an Air Force One predecessor, where these guys take over this airplane on this flight, and Wesley Snipes has to take down the villains, pretty much. And it's a fun little ride. It's a fun action film. Bruce Payne, who is in Full Eclipse, he's the villain in this. You also have Tom Sizemore in the film. Directed by Kevin Hooks, who I think did Fled, I believe, with Lawrence Fishburne. But Passenger 57 is definitely one of my favorites of Wesley Snipes. I think, a lot of fun action. I like the sequences on the airplane, all the action sequences on the plane, and it's a fun ride. It's 84 minutes and it goes by really, really quick, so it's got a lot of fast-paced action to it. And definitely one of my favorite characters of Wesley Snipes, without a doubt. I really like Passenger 57. So that's my number 9. Coming in at number 8, U.S. Marshals, the sequel to The Fugitive. Not as good as The Fugitive, but I still do enjoy the film. Yeah, I mean, the film can be cut down a little bit. It is over 2 hours long, and there are some parts that kind of drag. I know The Fugitive was over 2 hours long, but I think that had a better flow to it. This one, kind of is a little sluggish here and there, but it's still a good movie, though. Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones coming back from the first film. Robert Downey Jr. is one of the cops. Joe Pantoliano comes back from the first movie. But this time, instead of Harrison Ford being the fugitive, it is Wesley Snipes this time as the fugitive. Now, I will admit, Wesley Snipes does a really good job in here, but his story wasn't really as interesting as, say, the innocent doctor played by Harrison Ford in the first film. But you still got some nice, decent action bits here and there. I really like the cast. I think, Wesley Snipes does a great job, sort of like in the Harrison Ford, sort of like fugitive role this time. And Tommy Lee Jones, once again, does a good job. It was cool to see, Robert Downey Jr. well before Iron Man right there. But I like U.S. Marshals. Number 7, I had to put Blade 2. Excellent sequel to the first Blade. I have the DVDs in there, but it was kind of hard to get out. I have the first 2 on DVD. I really want to get them on Blu-ray, but Blade 2, excellent sequel, directed by Guillermo del Toro. Wesley Snipes, once again, it's excellent performance by. I mean, what more can you say about Blade 2 that hasn't been said before? Excellent film, excellent sequel. Number 6 is an underrated Wesley Snipes film, in my opinion. At number 6, The Fan. Very, very, very underrated thriller, directed by Tony Scott. May he rest in peace, Tony Scott. But basically, Robert De Niro is an obsessed baseball fan. Wesley Snipes is a baseball player who plays for the San Francisco Giants. And basically, Robert De Niro is an obsessed fan because Robert De Niro is pretty much, he says, the number 1 fan of the San Francisco Giants, and his favorite player is Bobby Rayburn, played by Wesley Snipes, who got paid a lot of money. Supposed to be this good player, and then there's this big cat and mouse game between these two, and there's a point where Wesley Snipes' kid is in danger because of Robert De Niro, when Robert De Niro, kidnaps the kid, and it becomes a whole nightmare, and it's a really solid thriller, and I think it's very well directed by Tony Scott. You also have people like John Leguizamo, Benicio del Toro, Ellen Barkin. You even have appearances by a couple baseball players like Jack. Jack Black plays a radio guy, but John Kruk, who was the first baseman of the Phillies in the '90s, he's in here as a guy who gets killed at the very end by Robert De Niro. Very well done musical score as well by Hans Zimmer. But I really like The Fan. I think it's a very underrated movie. Number 5, one of my personal favorite comedies, Major League. Easily one of my favorite roles of Wesley Snipes as Willie Mays Hayes, the guy that steals all the bases. Wesley Snipes is just a really fun character, where he actually has a collection of all the bases that he stole and counts them up. And just him working in this cast with Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, and Corbin Burnson, James Gammon, Rene Russo. Very fun comedy. And definitely one of my favorite characters of Wesley Snipes is Willie Mays Hayes. I mean, what more can you say about Major League that hasn't been said before? Coming in at number 4 is actually my favorite Wesley Snipes comedy, classic, White Man Can Jump. Easily my favorite collaboration between these two guys. I know they did Money Train as well, which I also enjoy. I know a lot of people don't enjoy Money Train, but I like Money Train as well. But I love this one even more. This is without a doubt the better film. Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson just have excellent chemistry with one another. I love the back and forth between them. You also have people like Rosie Perez and things like that. Directed by Ron Shelton, who did Bull Durham. But, I mean, what more can you say about White Man Can't Jump? It's definitely one of my favorite 90s comedies. Number 3, of course, got to go with the first Blade. Without a doubt, one of my personal favorite Wesley Snipes films of all time. I love the first Blade. Blade 2 is a pretty close second behind for me, but I love the first Blade more. Stephen Dorff as Deacon Frost, the villain. I mean, what more can you say about Blade that hasn't been said before? It's one of Wesley Snipes' best films. Number 2, Murder at 1600. Very underrated action thriller. Directed by Dwight H. Little, who did Halloween 4, Marked for Death, Rapid Fire. Definitely a really solid blend of action and thriller about a murder at the White House, where Wesley Snipes is is a detective. You have a good cast: Diane Lane, Alan Alda, Ronnie Cox, Dennis Miller. Very well done musical score by Christopher Young, who did the first 2 Hellraisers. Did the score for this. And yeah, this is a really good blend of action and thriller. And if you like Wesley Snipes, I highly recommend that you check out Murder at 1600. And of course, my number 1 favorite Wesley Snipes film easily had to be this one, Demolition Man. Without a doubt, my favorite character that Wesley Snipes has played, and my favorite film of his that he's been in. The back and forth between him and Stallone is great. This is the pure definition of 90s fun when it comes to action films. And you also have people like, Sandra Bullock and Nigel Hawthorne, who I think worked with Stallone before, I believe, too. I think he did. But what more can you say about Demolition Man that hasn't been said before? It's pure 90s action fun. Without a doubt. And that is pretty much it. That's my top 10 favorite Wesley Snipes films. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.